The silence of the Argentine scrubland is shattered not by a scream, but by the dull, sickening thud of bone hitting bone. Imagine two multi-ton titans, the meat-eating bulls known as Carnotaurus, locking eyes across a sun-scorched clearing. These are not mindless monsters driven by mindless rage. They are participants in a high-stakes, ancient choreography. They lower their blunt, horn-adorned heads, their muscular necks tensing like coiled springs before they launch into a head-butting collision that vibrates through the very earth. This is the ritual of conflict. In this world, violence is a currency, spent only when necessary to buy dominance, mating rights, or the very ground beneath their feet. As they shove and snap, their tiny vestigial arms are irrelevant. It is the power of their skulls and the resolve in their amber eyes that settle the score. This isn't just a fight. It's a living testament to the fact that in the Cretaceous, your legacy is forged in the fire of confrontation. It is the ultimate emotional hook, a reminder that life has always been governed by the direct consequences of one's strength and will. When we watch these prehistoric dramas unfold, we aren't just looking at aliens from a lost world. We are looking into a mirror. The rivalry between these Carnotaurus males mirrors the universal struggle for survival that permeates every corner of our modern existence. These encounters are the foundational language of the Cretaceous, a dialect of tooth, claw, and roar that shaped the behavior of every living thing across the supercontinent of Gondwana. It dictated where a herd could graze, when a predator could strike, and how a species would evolve over millions of years. This survival instinct is a familiar ghost that still haunts our own DNA. It tells us that boundaries are not just lines on a map, but are the result of thousands of individual choices and hard-won victories. Every scar on a dinosaur's hide was a lesson learned, a boundary set, and a rhythm established in the chaotic heartbeat of the daily ecosystem. As the sun begins its ascent over the harsh savanna of what we now call Patagonia, the light reveals a landscape of brutal beauty. Here, the Amargasaurus herds begin their daily trek. These are remarkable sauropods, smaller than some of their cousins, but adorned with two parallel rows of high spines running down their necks. Their movement is not a random wandering, but a deliberate, socially coordinated migration. Driven by the relentless pressure of water scarcity, the herd moves as a single organism. There is a profound intelligence in their formation. The young are kept in the center, protected by a phalanx of massive bodies. Leadership here isn't about ego, it's about collective memory. The oldest matriarchs remember the locations of hidden springs and seasonal oases that haven't seen rain in months. In this unforgiving climate, social structure is a survival tool as critical as any claw or tooth. Even the strongest social bonds can be frayed by the white-hot heat of a prolonged drought. As the rivers turn to dust and the vegetation withers into brittle stalks, the unity of the Amargasaurus is put to the ultimate test. This is the moment of social fracture. Resources become so scarce that the herd must make the agonizing decision to split. It is a strategic calculation of life and death. Mothers are forced to choose between the frantic needs of their starving calves and the survival of the collective. The adults must weigh the risk of staying in a known but dying territory against the exposure of a trek across the salt pans. Who stays? Who moves? These are not just biological reactions, they are strategic maneuvers. The fracture of the herd reveals the dark side of survival, that sometimes, to preserve the species, the individual or the smaller group must be sacrificed to the hungry horizon. Then the sky breaks. At the La Amarga Formation, the arrival of the seasonal floods is nothing short of a resurrection. What was once a graveyard of sun-bleached bones and cracked earth transforms overnight into a lush, emerald paradise. This renewal is a period of frantic growth and fleeting safety. The Amargasaurus and other herbivores gorge themselves on the sudden abundance, their bodies replenishing the fat reserves that will sustain them through the next lean cycle.
See how the gait changes.
In these
right
moments
here.
of plenty,
This
the
sudden
young have the
swerve,
chance
this is
to
a
learn,
beautiful
to
example
play,
of a
to
frozen
observe
decision,
social
a
cues,
behavioral
and to grow
snapshot.
strong.
Look at
However,
this.
this beauty
The
is
bone
deceptive.
healed.
The
Whatever
rains are
attacked it, the
impermanent,
T-Rex
and the
survived.
abundance is a
This
brief
scar
window.
tells the whole
This
story
cycle
of the struggle.
reinforces a harsh lesson. Constant vigilance is the only way to endure. Even in times of peace, the shadow of the next drought is already lengthening. When paleontologists brush away the dust of millions of years, they aren't just finding bones, they are uncovering frozen decisions. Every fossilized trackway is a record of a choice made under pressure. Did the predator hesitate? Did the prey bolt too early? A scar on a ribcage tells the story of a gamble that almost didn't pay off. A group of skeletons huddled together suggests a final, desperate social strategy. These remnants are the intersection of opportunity and danger. They remind us that the prehistoric world was never in a state of peaceful stasis. It was a theater of constant movement, a series of high-stakes gambles where the price of a wrong turn was eternal silence. By studying these bones, we are reading the ultimate survival guide, written in the language of mineral and stone. As we journey north from the dry plains of Argentina, the landscape shifts dramatically into the tropical brilliance of ancient Brazil. Here, the rules change. The Atlantic coast of the Cretaceous was a land of plenty, where water was never a scarcity and life thrived in the humid air. In this environment, the desperate migrations of the south are replaced by the art of specialization. Coastal ecosystems do not require constant movement, they require niche refinement. Here, creatures didn't need to be jacks of all trades. They needed to be masters of one. The abundance of fish, fruit, and insects allowed for an explosion of biodiversity, creating a complex web where every creature had its specific, highly evolved place in the sun. In this coastal paradise, the air belongs to the pterosaurs. These are the undisputed masters of the sky, but they are far from the clumsy gliders once imagined. Species like Marodactylus and the massive Tropeognathus are marvels of biological engineering. Their wingspan, stretching as wide as a small plane, is controlled by sophisticated musculature and a brain fine-tuned for the nuances of flight. They are aerial hunters, specialized to skim the waves and pluck fish with surgical precision. But their anatomy serves a dual purpose. Their magnificent crests are not just for aerodynamics, but for social signaling. In the crowded coastal colonies, a bigger, brighter crest could mean the difference between attracting a mate and being relegated to the fringes. They are the ultimate example of how evolution exploits abundance to create spectacular, specialized forms. The complexity of pterosaurs extends far beyond their flight mechanics. Evidence suggests they lived in highly organized social structures. Imagine a cliffside teeming with thousands of colonial nesters, a cacophony of shrieks, and the constant buffeting of wings. They practiced synchronized flight to confuse predators and utilized shared warning systems to signal the approach of a storm or a terrestrial threat. This level of cooperation was essential in an environment where sudden ecological shifts, like tropical cyclones, could wipe out an entire generation. Their social intelligence was a shield, allowing them to navigate the complexities of their world not as isolated hunters, but as a coordinated aerial civilization. While the giants like Tropeognathus specialized in the sea, the pterosaur tapejara chose a different path: versatility. With its shorter wings and parrot-like beak, Tapejara was the generalist of the Cretaceous. It could navigate the dense forest canopy just as easily as it could hop along the shoreline. It ate fruit, scavenged carcasses, and caught small prey. This adaptability is its greatest strength. In a world of volatility, generalists often endure where specialists
the
fail.
Tapejara successfully snatches its prey from the forest floor.
When the fish populations dipped, Tapejara simply turned to the forest. It illustrates a fundamental rule of biology. While specialization allows you to dominate a niche, versatility allows you to survive the collapse of that niche. It is a masterclass in the power of keeping one's options open. In these ecosystems, survival isn't just about what you're born with, it's about what you learn. We are seeing more and more evidence that prehistoric animals relied on cultural transmission, the passing of knowledge from one generation to the next. How to read the darkening of the sky before a storm, which plants are toxic, and the safest routes through predator-heavy territory. These are learned behaviors. An Amargasaurus calf learns the rhythm of the migration from its mother, and a young Tropeognathus learns the best fishing spots by watching the elders. This behavioral learning is as critical as any anatomical adaptation. It suggests that these were not just biological machines, but creatures with a capacity for experience and a form of culture that helped them navigate a changing world. Returning south to the land of extremes, we encounter the true titans, the Argentinosaurus. These are the largest animals to ever walk the earth, moving mountains of flesh and bone that reshape the landscape with every step. Their strategy for survival was simple: sheer, overwhelming scale. An adult Argentinosaurus was virtually immune to predation, protected by a hull of thick skin and a mass that no single predator could tackle. They moved in herds, not just for protection, but as a collective defense mechanism. Their movement was an ecological event. They cleared forests, created new paths for smaller animals, and their waste fertilized the plains. They represent the pinnacle of collective defense through coordination and size, a living fortress that dominated the horizon. But even for a giant, there is a shadow. Enter Giganotosaurus, a predator that redefined the meaning of tactical hunting. Giganotosaurus was not a mindless bruiser. It was a strategist of the highest order. It relied on timing, speed, and the exploitation of opportunity. It knew it couldn't kill an Argentinosaurus in a single blow, so it used flesh-grazing tactics, taking large bites and waiting for the giant to weaken from blood loss and exhaustion. This created a strategic feedback loop between predator and prey. The prey evolved to be larger and more coordinated, while the predator evolved to be more patient and calculated. It was an arms race of the mind as much as the body, where every move was met with a countermove in a never-ending game of life and death. While Giganotosaurus ruled the ground, Thanatosdraken, the dragon of death, ruled the air. This Azhdarchid pterosaur was a nightmare of the heavens, with a wingspan that could rival a giraffe in height when standing on the ground. It was an aerial regulator, capable of picking off juveniles of almost any species. Its presence influenced the behavior of everything below it.
Eye reflects the larger world, showing the interconnected strategies.
Herds would stay under the cover of trees when the shadow of Thanatosdraken passed overhead, and smaller predators would abandon their kills if this winged terror landed nearby. Its dominance shows how control in one ecological layer, the sky, can indirectly reshape the lives and habits of those on the ground. As we circle back to our original Carnotaurus duel, we see it now with deeper eyes. This ritualistic combat is the heartbeat of the species. It regulates the population, ensuring that only the strongest and most resilient pass on their genes. But victory is a double-edged sword. The winner may gain the territory, but he does so at the cost of broken ribs, torn flesh, and exhaustion. In the Cretaceous, a victory can be a death sentence if it leaves you too weak to defend against the next challenger or too injured to hunt. The fortune of a king can reverse in a heartbeat. These fights are the scales of nature, constantly balancing the needs of the individual against the survival of the lineage. Every conflict in the wild creates a ripple effect that touches lives miles away. When those Carnotaurus fight, they are not alone. Scavengers like small dromaeosaurs wait in the shadows, hopping for a stray scrap of flesh or a permanent casualty. Juveniles watch from a distance, learning the techniques they will one day need to survive. A distracted predator is an opportunity for a prey animal to escape, or for a rival to steal a kill. Nature is a master of recycling. It converts the energy of violence into the energy of the ecosystem without an ounce of judgment. Every drop of blood spilled is a meal for 1,000 insects. Every broken bone is a calcium deposit for the soil. The survival of these species was not an accident. It was a complex web of interconnected strategies. Hunting styles, herd tactics, the economics of scavenging, and the deep-seated knowledge of migration patterns all work together. Adaptation is not just about growing a longer neck or sharper teeth. It is a behavioral and social process. The way a Giganotosaurus tracks its prey is as much an adaptation as its serrated teeth. The way an Amargasaurus herd shares the burden of leadership is as much a survival trait as its defensive spines. The Cretaceous was a world built on a foundation of behavioral intelligence, where the software of the mind was just as important as the hardware of the body. We must confront a hard truth. Nature has no concept of fairness. In the world of the dinosaurs, being the strongest, the fastest, or even the smartest offered no ironclad guarantees. A freak flash flood, a sudden infection, or a volcanic eruption could wipe out the most fit individual in seconds. Natural selection is a ruthless sculptor, shaping the resilience of a species through the relentless loss of individuals. It is an indifferent system that prioritizes the endurance of the many over the survival of the one. This harshness is what makes the stories of those who survived so compelling. They are the ones who beat the impossible odds of an uncaring universe. Land, the air, and the water are not separate worlds. They are a single, unified system. A drought on the plains of Argentina forces carcasses to pile up, which attracts pterosaurs from hundreds of miles away, which in turn brings terrestrial predators to the same spot. A shift in the coastal currents of Brazil can change the weather patterns in the interior, sparking the migrations of the sauropods. Every species is a thread in a living network. When one thread is pulled, the entire tapestry vibrates. This connectivity is the true strength of an ecosystem, but also its greatest vulnerability. Our understanding of this world is not a finished book. It is an evolving investigation. Paleontology is a dialogue between the present and the past. New discoveries, a feathered tail in amber, a new nesting site in the Patagonian desert, constantly force us to revise our narratives. We are moving away from seeing dinosaurs as monsters and towards seeing them as complex animals responding to climate change, social pressures, and extinction dynamics. Every fragment of bone is a data point that helps us triangulate the reality of ancient life. It is a detective story that spans millions of years, and we are only just beginning to read the most interesting chapters. As we look at the struggle of a mother Amargasaurus or the exhaustion of a victorious Carnotaurus, we feel a surge of empathy. This is a powerful tool, but we must use it with scientific restraint. We shouldn't anthropomorphize these animals. They didn't think like we do, but we can recognize the shared experience of living.
And here
the
it is,
fear of a
the
predator,
missing link
the
in the
drive to
detective
protect
story
one's
of life.
offspring, and the simple
The past
desire to
truly
find a
does
cool
hold the
drink of
answers.
water are universal. This
We need
empathy
shots
bridges the
of the
66
cervical
million
vertebrae,
year gap,
specifically dorsal
turning
view if
specimens
possible.
into lives
it.
and
The
helping
lighting
us
here
understand
is
our
tricky.
own place in the long, bloody, and beautiful history of life on Earth.
A universal desire
Imagine yourself
for
in their
all
place.
living things.
Imagine standing on the Argentine plains as the heat rises, forced to decide whether to stay with your community or strike out on your own for a chance at water. Imagine the pressure of reading the subtle signs of danger in the rustle of the grass. This exercise is not just for children. It is a way to understand the fundamental nature of decision-making. We, as modern humans, face different threats, but the core of the experience is the same. Making choices under uncertainty, trusting our community, and navigating a world that doesn't always have our best interests at heart. The stories of the Cretaceous offer us metaphors for our own resilience. The Tropeognathus teaches us the value of specialization and finding our niche. The Tapejara reminds us that versatility and a willingness to change our diet, our ways of thinking, can help us survive volatility. The Argentinosaurus shows us that there is strength in numbers and collective coordination. These are not just biological facts, they are strategies for living. In a world that is changing faster than ever, these ancient lessons of adaptation are more relevant than they have ever been. As we close this chapter of our journey, I want to turn this observation into a conversation. If you were a creature in the Cretaceous, which survival strategy would you choose? Would you be the specialized master of your domain, or the versatile generalist ready for anything? Would you lead the herd through the drought, or hunt with tactical precision in the shadows? Reflect on your own life. What are the survival choices you are making today? How are you adapting to the shifting climates of your own world? Let these ancient giants spark a dialogue within you about your own strength and resilience. The fossils we find today are not trophies of triumph. They are testimonies of endurance and failure. They are the final notes in a symphony that lasted for eons. The past is not a spectacle to be consumed. It is an instruction etched in the dust, waiting for those with the patience to read it. It tells us that life is persistent, beautiful, and incredibly fragile. It reminds us that we are part of a lineage of survivors that goes back to the very first heartbeat of the world. It is a story of facing the impossible with instinct and intelligence. As you go about your day, remember the resilience of the Amargasaurus and the focus of the Carnotaurus. Apply that same persistence to your own challenges. If you enjoyed this journey through deep time, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and join our community of explorers. What prehistoric mysteries should we uncover next? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next adventure.